Your brain is not fixed, but it also will not change on its own. Most people think intelligence is something you are born with. Either you have it or you do not. That belief is wrong, and more importantly, it is expensive. Because if you believe your brain is fixed, you stop trying to change it. You chalk up every struggle to wiring, every limitation to genetics, and every gap between you and the people ahead of you to something that was decided before you had any say in the matter. Modern neuroscience does not agree. The brain is not a machine that gets built once and then runs until it breaks. It is a living organ that physically reshapes itself in response to what you do, what you think, what you practice, and what you repeatedly expose it to. Every skill you build, every habit you form, every difficult thing you learn carves new pathways into the structure of your own brain. That process has a name: neuroplasticity, and it does not stop when you turn 25 or 40 or 65. But here's the problem. Neuroplasticity is not automatic. The brain does not transform itself because you want it to, or because you watched a documentary about it, or because you have been meaning to read more books. It changes only when you actually force it to. Left alone, it will follow the path of least resistance every single time. Same roots, same habits, same comfortable loops. The brain is a survival organ first. It conserves energy by doing what it already knows how to do. Growth requires you to make it uncomfortable. Think of it like carving a trail through dense bush. The first time you walk through, it is genuinely awful, overgrown, slow, exhausting. Every step requires actual effort. The second time is slightly less terrible. The 10th time, it starts to look like a path. The 100th time, someone else might mistake it for a road. The neural pathway works exactly like that. Repetition turns effort into instinct. There are 4 principles that govern how this actually happens. Understand them, and you can use them deliberately. Ignore them, and your brain will just keep doing what it has always done. Now, principle 1, challenge is the only thing that creates change. The brain develops when it is forced to solve problems it has not solved before, when it is operating outside the comfortable zone where it already knows the answers. Passive consumption does almost nothing. You can scroll for 6 hours, watch 3 episodes of something, listen to a podcast while half paying attention, and your brain at the end of that day has changed approximately 0. It has been busy. It has not been challenged. Research from the University of Texas put this directly to the test. They took older adults and split them into groups. One group did social activities and simple games, nice, relaxed, enjoyable. The other group learned genuinely difficult new skills, digital photography, Photoshop, things that required sustained, effortful, frustrating engagement. The group that struggled showed significantly greater improvements in memory and cognitive performance. Not because struggle is somehow noble, because challenge is the actual mechanism. The brain has no reason to build new pathways for things it can already handle. Learning a language does this. Learning an instrument does this. Mathematics, programming, chess, anything that forces your brain to hold complexity it cannot yet process comfortably. You do not need to enroll anywhere. Writing with your non-dominant hand forces the brain to recruit pathways it normally ignores. Doing mental arithmetic at the supermarket instead of reaching for the phone. Memorizing names and details when you meet someone new instead of letting it slide. Simple. Uncomfortable. That is the point. If the brain is not challenged, it has no reason to change. Full stop. Now, principle 2. Your environment is doing most of the work without you realizing it. Willpower is overrated. You have heard people say this and maybe dismissed it, but here is the actual mechanism behind why it is true. The brain is constantly responding to its surroundings. The things you see, hear, touch, and interact with every day are either encouraging neural activation or they are not. You do not rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your environment. A neuroscientist named Marion Diamond ran experiments that make this point impossible to ignore. She took 2 groups of rats. One group lived in enriched cages, toys, tunnels, exercise wheels, other rats to interact with, variety everywhere. The other group lived in bare cages, food, water, walls. That was it. The rats in the enriched environment developed thicker cerebral cortices, more neural connections, measurably greater cognitive capability. Their environment literally grew their brains. You are not a rat, but the principle transfers perfectly. An enriched environment means you are constantly bumping into novelty, challenge, and things that require your brain to engage, meaningful conversations that expose you to perspectives you do not already hold, books that are actually difficult rather than just comfortable. Music you have not heard before. If you are learning a language, change the operating language on your phone. Every single interaction with your device becomes a micro lesson. The brain adapts because it has to. And the reverse is also true. An environment full of junk food, infinite scroll, constant distraction, and zero friction around your worst habits is not neutral. It is actively working against you. You designed your surroundings, consciously or not, and those surroundings are now designing you back. Fix the environment. Reduce the dependence on motivation. Now, principle 3, repetition is the only thing that makes it stick. The brain strengthens the pathways it uses. It eliminates the ones it does not. This is called synaptic pruning, and the shorthand neuroscientists use for it is so simple it sounds like something off a motivational poster. Use it or lose it. But it is real, and the implications are significant. Think about the Grand Canyon. The Colorado River did not cut through solid rock in a weekend. It took an incomprehensible number of years of water moving in the same direction, day after day, century after century, reshaping an entire landscape one pass at a time. Each individual drop of water is meaningless. The accumulation is everything. That is your practice session. That is your daily repetition. Meaningless in isolation, transformative across time. The important caveat here is intensity. Mindless repetition produces slower results than focused, demanding repetition. A musician who practices for an hour on autopilot improves less than one who spends 30 minutes concentrating specifically on the passages that are breaking down. The brain responds to being pushed past what it can already do. Comfortable repetition maintains, uncomfortable repetition builds, and here is a useful piece of the mechanism. The brain groups sequences of actions into chunks over time. An experienced driver is not consciously managing steering, mirrors, gear changes, and speed simultaneously. They have chunked all of that into a single automated unit. That automation frees up mental bandwidth for higher level thinking. What starts as exhausting effort eventually runs in the background while you think about something harder. Effort becomes instinct, but only with enough repetition. Now, principle 4, none of this works if you ignore the engine. The brain is an organ. It runs on blood, oxygen, sleep, and the absence of chronic stress. No amount of mental training compensates for a brain that is running on 4 hours of sleep, elevated cortisol, no movement, and terrible food. That is not a lifestyle critique. That is just biology. Stress is the clearest threat. When the brain perceives danger, it releases cortisol, short bursts, fine, useful even, sharpens focus. But chronic stress, the low-level, constant background hum of anxiety and pressure that most people have just normalized, does genuine structural damage over time. Prolonged cortisol exposure has been shown to reduce hippocampal volume. That is the part of the brain most directly involved in memory and learning. It also weakens the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for planning, reasoning, and not saying something you immediately regret. The stressed brain becomes reactive, impulsive, and short-term focused. It is surviving, it is not growing. Sleep is when the brain consolidates everything you learned during the day. Memories move from temporary storage into longer-term structure. Unnecessary connections get pruned. Essential ones get reinforced. Skip the sleep, and the learning from the day before partially evaporates. You are essentially paying the cost of learning without collecting the return. And exercise. This one genuinely surprises people who have not looked into it. Physical movement stimulates the release of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it as fertilizer for neurons. It helps existing neurons survive and encourages the growth of new ones. Studies have shown that regular exercise can actually increase the size of the hippocampus, the same region that chronic stress shrinks. You are choosing, with your habits, whether that structure grows or contracts. Around 1 hour of moderate exercise 3 times a week is where the research starts showing substantial cognitive benefits. That is walking, swimming, cycling, lifting, anything that moves the body hard enough to matter. So here's the whole picture, and it really is this simple. Challenge creates the change, environment sustains it, repetition makes it permanent, physical health provides the conditions for all three to actually work. The brain is not a fixed score on a test you took when you were 8. It is a living structure that is responding to what you do today, tomorrow, and the day after that. Every difficult thing you push through, every new skill you grind away at, every night you actually sleep, every workout you do when you do not feel like it, all of it is physically reshaping the organ you think with. Intelligence is not inherited, it is built. The trail is steep. It is absolutely worth walking. All right, that is a wrap for today. If this landed, drop a comment below. Which of the 4 do you think you are worst at right now? I am genuinely curious. Links in the description as always. We will see you back here next time. Until then, take care.